The story begins on a busy high school track where the runners were pushing through the final stretch of their race. While others struggled to catch their breath, Xu Jing crossed the finish line and stopped firmly. The coach checked the stopwatch and called out the result. Xu Jing 2 minutes 36 seconds 79. It was an impressive time, and the reaction from the sidelines was immediate. A group of girls watching began cheering and waving at him, calling out his name. Ignoring the noise, Xu Jing grabbed a water bottle to cool down. He tilted his head back and let the water wash over his face and neck. A timid female student stepped forward and held out a packet of tissues with shaky hands. She asked him to wipe his sweat. Xu Jing blinked, a bit confused, but accepted it politely and thanked her. She hurried back to her friends, overwhelmed with excitement. As Xu Jing wiped his sweat, he quietly gave a command. A faint yellow interface appeared in front of him, unseen by others. It displayed running experience plus 20, running LV3, 258 800. He noticed the points increased a bit more than usual. Then another notification popped up with plus 45. His expression went flat. He glanced at the crowd of girls still calling his name and muttered that this skill leveled up too fast. A sharp whistle cut through the air. His instincts reacted immediately. A tennis ball was flying toward him at high speed. Xu Jing didn't move in panic. He simply watched its path and caught it with a single motion. The impact sent dust around his hand, but he held the ball firmly. Smoke rose slightly from it, showing how strong the throw had been. He looked at it in confusion while the thrower stood in the distance with a sharp grin. Lu Xing's close friend ran up to him in a panic, asking who the thrower was. Lu squinted, recognized the person, and went pale. It was Pei Guang, the infamous school tyrant. He stood tall near the fence with a red aura around him, tossing another tennis ball, casually. Lu nearly fell over in fear. He asked Xu Jing why he had gotten involved with someone like Pei Guang and complained that it was probably because of girls again. He told Xu Jing to accept someone already so he would stop drawing trouble. Xu Jing gave no reaction and tossed the smoking ball aside before walking away. Lu stared at him, frustrated and scared, and chased after him, warning that Pei Guang wasn't someone to provoke. He asked what Xu Jing planned to do. Xu Jing didn't look back and simply said he was going to work out as he walked toward the gym. As he walked, his thoughts turned inward. People always told him that working out was useless and that martial arts were the only way to become truly strong. Xu Jing wondered if that was true. He looked at his hand and clenched it into a fist. For others it might be useless, but he was different. His confidence came from something he had kept secret for a month. He had not been born in this world. He had appeared without warning in a city that looked similar to Earth, but was fundamentally different. And he hadn't arrived empty-handed. A strange translucent panel followed him everywhere, operating on one rule: effort brings rewards. Back in his room, lifting a dumbbell wasn't just exercise. It was progress. With each repetition, golden numbers appeared: strength +1, agility +1, constitution +1. If he practiced a specific action enough, the system would upgrade it. Throwing darts wasn't just a hobby. After enough practice, his eyes would gain a precise blue focus, and the system would activate aiming LV1. Hard work is never wasted, he reminded himself. But the growth came with a cost. Standing in his room, his stomach growled loudly. The daily practice consumed a huge amount of energy, and he needed to eat constantly. Hungry, he went to the kitchen. When he opened the refrigerator, he found it completely empty. He sighed, staring at the bare shelves. He removed his shirt and tossed it aside. His body was well-defined and toned, but he reminded himself he wasn't working this hard for appearances. Later that night, Xu Jing walked through the neon-lit streets of his district, the 5th Metropolitan Circle. The city was structured like a target, with the outer areas poor and the inner areas prosperous. As he moved through the crowded streets, he felt the pressure of his situation. Half a year remained before graduation. He knew he had to decide whether he would fight to enter the inner circle or remain poor. With his resolve firm, he entered a convenience store. He needed fuel for his system, so he filled a basket with nutritious food, vegetables, milk, and proteins before heading to the counter. The cashier scanned everything and calmly announced the total, 210. Xu Jing froze, a bead of sweat rolling down his face as his confident thoughts stopped instantly. Moments later, The future ruler of the inner circle was quietly removing items from the basket, returning a carton of milk and then a vegetable, avoiding the cashier's eyes. Defeated by grocery prices, Shu Jing walked home through the narrow alleys of the outer circle with a small shopping bag in hand. He muttered to himself about the cost of 5 eggs, convinced the world had gone mad. Suddenly, a dark blur shot past him with the force of strong wind. He flinched and tightened his grip on his groceries before turning to find a small black cat on the pavement. It wore strange golden bands on its ankles and tail. The cat stared at him with wide eyes and meowed. Shu Jing relaxed, assuming it was just a stray, but the cat suddenly stiffened and fell over dramatically, lying motionless. He looked at it, unimpressed, suspecting it was trying to trick him for food. He crouched down to check, but as he looked closely, his expression changed. The cat's fur was dirty and matted, and it was covered in injuries, as if it had lost a fight. While he observed it, a faint voice drifted through his mind, sounding tired and defeated. The cat's eyes glowed blue as the voice continued. Shu Jing jumped back in shock, staring at the cat in disbelief. Even with a system of his own, hearing a cat speak was far beyond anything he expected. His gaze shifted to the golden band around the cat's tail, noticing its strange and detailed design. He touched it lightly, inspecting the metal. The moment he made contact, the band burst into golden light. His system reacted in a new way, sending an urgent message. Detected divine substance, absorbing divinity. The word stayed in his mind as the glowing light pulled his thoughts away from the alley, reminding him of the world he lived in. This planet, called Earthstar or Zuyao, was not the Earth he remembered. Its history was shaped by one event. 287 years ago, God died. It was not a myth. A colossal glowing being had appeared above the city, towering over skyscrapers, and then shattered, raining light across the world. Every human saw it happen. The sky still carried the remains of the broken celestial body, a reminder of that day. With the gods gone, people accepted that humanity stood alone. There were no answers to prayers and no miracles. Only strength mattered. The memory faded, and Shu Jing returned to the present, walking down the empty street with the black cat tucked in his arms. He felt the presence of his system and the potential of endless growth. While the world lost its gods long ago, he saw an opening where others saw emptiness. Blue energy flickered softly around him as he told himself he would eventually grind his way to godhood. Back in his small apartment, those ambitions were briefly paused for a simpler task, feeding the guest. Shu Jing placed a bowl of dry kibble on the floor. The cat looked at it, then turned away with clear disapproval. Shu Jing's eyebrow twitched as he reminded the creature it was supposed to be a stray, but the same tired voice echoed in his mind, and he realized something. This might not be an ordinary cat. If it had intelligence and standards, then dry kibble wouldn't work. Shu Jing stood up and headed to the kitchen while the cat watched him. Inside, he cooked with efficiency and determination. His knife moved quickly as he chopped scallions. Flames rose as he tossed ingredients into the wok, and every movement was practiced. For him, cooking was just another chance to level up. Soon, the apartment filled with the aroma of a freshly cooked meal. Shu Jing held out the steaming bowl of green pepper and shredded pork rice. The change in the cat was immediate, its earlier arrogance disappearing at the smell. Its eyes brightened slightly as it let out a small sound and began eating quickly. Shed Jing watched from the side with a quiet sense of satisfaction. He realized his guess was correct. Watching the creature eat normal food, he confirmed his thought that it wasn't a real cat at all, but a human who had turned into one. His gaze shifted to the golden band around its tail, thinking that it was probably the cause. Suddenly, a process inside him finished, and he felt a clear change settle in his body. He blinked, surprised by how quickly it completed. The progress continued, and a new ability was ready for him to use. It required a large amount of divinity, but he had just enough. He didn't hesitate and activated it. A golden light filled the room as the ability took effect. The energy gathered into a small flame hovering above his palm before sinking into his skin. He felt a strange new force settle within him. The ability gave him a passive effect and extra life. If he died, he could revive within 7 days. The cooldown was 3 months. Shed Jing was stunned by how useful it was. He checked if there was an active skill as well, but it remained locked. It needed much more divinity to unlock, and he didn't have enough. His eyes drifted toward the black cat, still eating without a care. He considered draining more divinity from it, but when he noticed the cuts and injuries on its body, he stopped. It already looked weak. He admitted that taking more would be too much. His expression softened. Instead of pulling on its tail, he gently patted the cat's head and decided to think of another approach. The cat finished its meal and let out a small burp. Shed Jing still couldn't ignore the golden band on its tail. It was clearly connected to divinity, and he needed to understand it. He stood up and grabbed his jacket. He planned to go out and look for clues about divinity and also see what the creature did while he was gone. He stepped outside, closing the door behind him. The cat stared at the door for a long moment. Its relaxed expression slowly disappeared, replaced by a sharp, alert look. Its emerald eyes glowed faintly as it watched the empty space, clearly more intelligent than it appeared. Outside, the night was cold. Shu Jing walked through the outer ring's crowded streets. The district was filled with poverty, and entering the inner ring required impossible fees, even if someone qualified. Still, many people tried, hoping for a better life. Shu Jing wasn't concerned about that. He knew another way existed. If someone became a martial artist, all barriers vanished. A large character on a graffiti-covered wall spelled out, "Martial," like a reminder to everyone passing by. Shu Jing continued walking until a rough voice called out to him. A bald man holding a baseball bat stepped forward with a blond man carrying a metal pipe. They blocked his path confidently, claiming that he had offended someone named Pu Guang. Shu Jing looked indifferent. Before they could continue, he moved. His kick sent the blond thug flying backward. The bald man froze, unable to understand what happened. Before he could react, Shu Jing struck him as well, dropping him to the ground. Shu Jing picked up a few loose stones. His left eye glowed faintly as he used a targeting skill, sending the stones accurately into the thugs on the ground. A deeper voice came from behind them. A large blue dragon-shaped aura formed in the alley. Pei Guang stepped forward with clear hostility. He attacked, but Shu Jing dodged easily. Instead of feeling threatened, he became curious. This was the martial arts he had been searching for. Realizing that Pei Guang actually knew martial arts, Shu Jing stepped forward with calm determination. He no longer saw the man as a danger, but as someone who could give him information. He ordered Pei Guang to explain everything he knew. A heavy pressure filled the air as Shu Jing's presence grew stronger. The confrontation ended quickly. Pei Guang was slammed into the wall with enough force to crack it, leaving the alley filled with dust. The school tyrant slid to the ground, completely defeated. He leaned against the scattered debris, holding his bruised chest, his face drained of color. His earlier confidence was gone, replaced with panic as he pleaded desperately. Shu Jing stood in front of him, hands in his pockets, looking down with calm indifference. He found the fight unimpressive. He had expected more, but the opponent only had one predictable move. The brief exchange had been simple. Piang's attack looked strong, but followed an obvious pattern. Shu Jing dodged easily and countered with one accurate strike. As the dust settled, a golden notification appeared at the side of his vision, confirming that the conditions had been met and the fighting skill had activated. Shu Jing felt a shift in his fists. The ability was linking his earlier aiming improvement to the precision of his punches. Looking at the trembling man on the ground, he understood how large the gap between them truly was. Dealing with someone of Peo Guang's level was more than enough for him now. Peo Guang pressed himself against the wall, shaking as he begged Shu Jing not to hit him again. Shu Jing ignored the apology and leaned forward, asking about the punch Peo Guang had used earlier. Confused but too frightened to lie, Peo Guang explained that it wasn't a technique, but inner force. Energy collected throughout the body and released through a movement. Shu Jing asked how to train inner force and who taught him. Peo Guang admitted he only knew the basics and couldn't explain it clearly. Shu Jing watched him for a moment, then grabbed him by the collar, unimpressed by his attempt to appear helpless. He listed the rumors Peo Guang had spread about himself to build a tough reputation, pointing out how different reality was. Peo Guang burst into tears, insisting it was all a persona and none of the stories were true. Shu Jing didn't accept the act and delivered one more strike to make sure the lesson stayed. He warned Peo Guang that if he ever forgot this moment, he would be punished every time they crossed paths. As he turned to leave, He ordered PEO Guang to write a self-criticism and recite it 10 times in front of the class the next morning. He also told him to have his friend record a video so Xu Jing could review it later. Terrified, PEO Guang agreed repeatedly and quickly showed Xu Jing a location on his phone, a dojo. Xu Jing glanced at the screen, noting the dojo location, then walked away, leaving the shaken school tyrant behind. Entering the inner ring marked a clear change. The old brick buildings faded into tall glass structures that reflected the city lights. Following the navigation on his phone, Xu Jing walked quietly through the clean, bright streets. Golden notifications appeared again, calculating experience gained from the earlier fight. He compared it to regular workouts and realized that one short battle had given him more progress than hours of training. He also awakened a new skill, which led him to a simple conclusion. Picking fights would increase his strength faster. Eventually, he arrived at a large building with a golden sign, Golden Wind Dojo. After the phone indicated the destination was reached, he entered. The lobby was quiet, and as he greeted the receptionist, she quickly hushed him, explaining that the master was teaching a class. Inside, an elderly man with a long white beard instructed a group of students about breathing methods and the basics of circulating inner force. Xu Jing stood at the back, listening with interest. This was exactly what he needed. He asked the receptionist if he could join, and she agreed, slightly flustered. A small notification appeared above her head, indicating charm experience. Xu Jing took a seat on an empty mat. The master instructed the students to tighten their core, inhale deeply, and hold their breath. Xu Jing followed the guidance calmly. The assistant watched nervously, worried because the group rarely produced promising students. Soon enough, most students reached their limits. Faces turned purple, many coughed violently, and even their most hopeful student failed. The master looked disappointed. The assistant apologized, asking for more time to find a suitable student. She then quickly stopped him from speaking further and pointed at the back. Xu Jing was still holding on without difficulty. A faint blue aura circled him as he practiced. The breathing method was harder than it sounded, requiring lung capacity most people didn't have. Inside Xu Jing's body, the sensation was intense but manageable. His expression remained composed. When the assistant announced the time was up, Xu Jing released his breath steadily. A notification confirmed his success. Inner force activated. The master immediately approached him, asking if he felt any discomfort. Xu Jing looked at his own palms, noticing faint steam and a light feeling throughout his body. He replied that he felt refreshed. The master's expression brightened. He held Xu Jing's hand and asked for his name, inviting him to join the dojo. Before Xu Jing could respond, the front entrance suddenly burst open with a loud crash. A dark silhouette stood in the doorway, radiating a menacing red aura. Without a word, the intruder swung a weapon and released a massive wave of crimson energy that tore through the room, instantly turning the peaceful training session into a battlefield. When the smoke cleared, the intruder was revealed to be a massive insectoid creature with glowing red eyes, pinning a disciple to the ground. Its mandibles clamped down with a sickening crunch, tearing into the student's chest as blood splattered across the dojo floor. Xu Jing stared at the scene, his pupils trembling as he shouted, "What the hell is this?" Chaos spread everywhere. The master, who is usually calm, shouted for everyone to leave quickly and not crowd together. He turned to his assistant and ordered Manager Jean to maintain order. She cried out in response, trying to guide the terrified students to the exit. But the monster fixed its multiple red eyes on the fleeing crowd and unleashed another wave of crimson energy with a high-pitched screech. The attack flew directly toward Manager Jean, who froze in fear, unable to dodge. Xu Jing moved instantly, diving forward and pulling her out of the attack's path. They crashed to the floor as the energy carved a gash into the wall behind them. Xu Jing hovered over her, breathing hard but focused. Manager Jean looked up, her face flushing red as she whispered, "Student, thank you," while her thoughts spiraled out of control. A golden notification appeared beside her head. Sham Produsva. Xu Jing ignored it entirely, his attention locked onto the raging monster. His mind flicked back to He Yong's explanation in the alley. Inner force is gathering energy from all parts of the body and then expelling it externally through a move. Xu Jing analyzed the red aura surrounding the beast. Dummy. Inner force versus inner force. Now is the perfect opportunity to experiment. The creature lunged at him with a screech, but he met it head-on. His fist, glowing with golden light, slammed into the monster's steel-hard exoskeleton. The impact felt like hitting a wall. He wondered if the thing was like a cockroach, able to withstand hundreds of times its own weight. He realized blunt force might not work. If that is really the case, he focused his strength into a single point. Golden energy inside his arm gathered into a concentrated needle. The shell shattered under the strike. Crack! Green blood sprayed as the creature was blasted backward. Skill activated. Inch force 80-20. Dust settled around him as he casually dusted off his jacket, unimpressed. "It's much weaker than it looks," he muttered. Manager Jean watched with starry eyes, completely forgetting the danger. "So cool," she sighed. The old master watched with fear and awe, realizing the boy had just mastered chi force and released a dangerous amount of it, something a normal body shouldn't handle. The creature rose again, its broken shell creaking as red energy flared around it. Xu Jing asked if it still wanted to continue. He took a stance, calm and cold, raising his fist as golden lines spread across his skin. "The result will be the same no matter how many times you try." Chi meridians gathered, ready to end it. But before he could strike, a fountain of blood burst into the air. Xu Jing froze, confused. A streak of crimson light tore through the room, followed by a brilliant slash of blue energy. It cleanly sliced the monster apart before it could react. Xu Jing blinked at the severed chunks, briefly thinking he might have overdone it, before realizing that the blue energy wasn't his. A silver-haired woman stood amidst the debris, wearing a sleek tactical bodysuit. "Void Blade taking over this area," she announced. "Unrelated personnel, please evacuate immediately." Xu Jing analyzed her, recognizing the White Raven Squad. To defeat the creature in one strike was impressive. She looked at him, trying to stay professional, though she was surprised by the damage he had caused with his bare hands. A faint blush crossed her face. She immediately decided she needed to recruit him. She stepped forward and handed him a note. "Sunday afternoon at 5 o'clock. Come to the address on the note. I will tell you what you want to know." Xu Jing unfolded it. Ching Ching Library 7F. A library, he thought. Outside, Manager Zhang rushed around him in excitement, worried and infatuated. She tried to check him for injuries and nearly said she would take him home before correcting herself to a hospital. He stepped back politely, saying he was fine and thanked the dojo staff. She called out for him to return tomorrow while hearts practically floated around her. The old master watched him leave, sighing that such talent couldn't be contained in a small dojo. Walking through the illuminated streets, Xu Jing checked his system notifications. Intense Battle EXP had given him Fitness EXP 29, Health Preservation EXP, Charm plus 50, and Fighting EXP 98. Conditions met. Activated. Inch Force. He studied the new technique, realizing it was simply concentrated chi accelerated in a short distance. He tried gathering chi again, but strain hit instantly, so he released it quickly, remembering the danger of internal injury. He decided to rest and try again tomorrow. The night's events weighed on him. White Raven Squad, Cockroach Man, this world hid many secrets. He touched the note in his pocket, planning to check the address on the weekend. When he reached his apartment, he checked the security feed. The camera showed his black cat sitting upright in his chair, typing on his keyboard. He kicked the door open and confronted the cat. "Were you just messing with on my computer?" The cat only blinked innocently. Meow. A silent standoff followed, until Xu Jing sighed from exhaustion and collapsed onto the bed without changing. The cat crept closer, curious, then caught the metallic smell of blood. Its expression hardened instantly. Energy crackled around it as it wondered who had hurt its person. In a spiritual vision, the cat appeared before Xu Jing, larger and imposing, declaring itself Ningfuna, leader of the dragon sect, demanding he explain what happened so it could seek justice. Xu Jing, half asleep, only muttered that he knew the cat could speak and said they would talk after he slept. Ningfa panicked, shaking him and shouting for him to stay awake long enough to explain. The morning sun shone into the apartment, lighting up the table where fried shrimp, fresh salad, and rice were set out. Xu Jing sat at the table looking completely refreshed. Full health resurrection had cleared away all the fatigue from the previous night. Across from him, the black cat was eating quickly, her cheeks full as she spoke between bites, sauce still on her face. So, you weren't beaten up by someone, but instead, you defeated a monster? Shu Jing ate calmly. Yeah. The cat swallowed, and her expression turned serious for a moment. I haven't heard of those things running into the city area, she said, bothered by the thought. Shu Jing watched her, his expression softening. Despite her attitude and unusual origins, she had been genuinely worried about him the night before. He reached out and gently placed his hand on her head. Thank you for worrying about me so much. Nar, he said with a warm smile. The cat froze, her face turning red as she stammered, caught off guard. Nar. She pushed his hand away, trying to regain her composure. You're not allowed to call me Nar. You must address me respectfully as Lord Sect leader. Shu Jing pulled his hand back, his smile turning playful. Okay, Lord Nar. Before she could react again, he leaned back and held up his phone. The relaxed mood immediately shifted into something more serious. Since Lord Nar can speak, he said with sharp eyes, why don't you explain what the you inside the phone was doing? The cat stiffened, her expression going blank before anxiety took over. She froze, realizing she had walked straight into trouble. This thing is called a cattail ring, he read aloud, comparing the object in his hand with the information on the screen. It is a type of god relic. He looked down at the cat, who lay stiff on the floor. I was looking up information on it, he said, intrigued. So this thing really is a god relic. Shu Jing recalled history books. 287 years ago, the god had died in the sky, and the golden specks that fell were fragments of divine power, god relics. I had only heard about them before, he thought, staring at the metal band. But now I've finally seen one. No wonder it can absorb divinity. He became absorbed in examining it, and forgot he was still holding the cat. He rubbed the metal while looking closely at her tail. The cat finally burst out. How long are you going to keep pinching? Shu Jing flinched and released her tail. Cough. He cleared his throat and returned to the topic. So, you were looking up instructions on how to use it? Ningfa lay flat on the floor, exhausted, her ears drooping. Not all, she muttered. I want to take it off. Regaining her composure, Ningfa sat up straight and her expression darkened as she explained what had happened. You know it too. The Dragon Siang, she began. Not only do they control entertainment venues, but they also work with martial arts halls for some drug businesses. Her memory went back to the night her life changed. I was attacked in my own villa. Someone put this thing on me, and I turned into a cat. By the time she escaped, her organization had already been taken over. I can only turn back into a human appearance if I take it off. Her claws scratched the floor lightly as she continued. And then, kill all those people, she said with clear intent. Shu Jing watched her calmly. What do you plan to do next? He asked. If you can't find it on the internet, the library probably won't help either. Ningfa's expression shifted from anger to thoughtfulness. She smirked. Regarding this point, this sect leader already has a plan, she said confidently. She pointed a paw at him. That is to have you practice martial arts and become strong. Shu Jing blinked, confused. Is there any connection between these two things? Of course, there is, Ningfa said, standing on her hind legs. After you become strong, various organizations will come looking for you, she explained. Maybe among them, there will be god relic holders. Then you can investigate and find a way to remove the cattail ring. She puffed her chest slightly. I'm going to introduce you to the best dojo. Shu Jing raised an eyebrow. You mean? Ningfa grinned. Have you heard of Hidden Dragon Dojo? Shu Jing's expression went flat. Of course. He turned to his computer and quickly brought up a page. Back when I wanted to practice martial arts, I checked the tuition fees of all the dojos in Chongqing, he said. And Hidden Dragon Dojo was the most expensive. He scrolled down to a long list of one-star reviews. But I didn't remember it because it was expensive. He read some out loud. What kind of dojo is this? The teaching quality doesn't match the tuition. Refund the money. Every day, they just send a few women to supervise. I suspect this is a scam dojo. Studied for a week, my back aches every day. No one gives any method to relieve it. Ningfa scoffed. These people can't even endure hardship. Why bother learning martial arts? She looked up at him seriously. In the circle of true martial artists, no one looks down on Hidden Dragon Dojo. Shu Jing sighed. So how do I get in? By following the rules of the Manhwa, she declared. Dojo storming, of course. Shoot, if I smash up the dojo's venue, will they still accept me? He asked. Ningfa stared at him. Look at your unsophisticated appearance, she said. Dojo storming is just an interview. She explained the hierarchy. Dojo disciples are also divided into ranks. A pyramid formed in Xu Jing's mind. Bottom tier, those who pay. Middle tier, those with talent. Top tier, those who prove their strength. Those with talent still have to rely on actual ability, she continued. It's useless if it takes 10 or 8 years to become capable. Xu Jing understood. He didn't have money or years to spare, only his system and his fists. I just have to go there and prove I'm better than everyone else. Ningfa, now acting like an advisor, added one last point. Dojo storming is a form of self-recommendation, she said, and the best way to prove one's spirit. As Xu Jing headed for the door, the cat jumped onto the window. So, remember to go to the dojo tomorrow, she said while looking outside. I'm going to take care of some things. The next morning, sunlight lit the city as Xu Jing reached the hidden dragon dojo. The building was a traditional wooden structure tucked among modern skyscrapers. A disciple at the entrance walked over and greeted him with a smile. Xu Jing reached out to shake his hand. As their palms met, Xu Jing felt a sudden, sharp pressure. The disciple squeezed hard, veins standing out on his arm, while keeping a polite smile. Xu Jing guessed it was a test and decided to take it seriously. He gathered golden energy in his hand and squeezed back. The disciple cried out and pulled his hand away in pain. Xu Jing laughed and played it off, saying the man liked to spar. The other disciples snickered, and the greeter complained about Xu Jing's strength. Xu Jing realized his mistake and let the man go. The commotion drew attention. Someone warned that the master and the direct disciples were approaching. A group moved in, radiating a stronger presence than the gatekeepers. Leading them were direct disciples who looked like experienced fighters. Li, a large muscular man. Zhu Shanning, a fierce woman in a qipao. Mingqing Xiao, a sharp-eyed girl with glasses. Chun Fuguang, a confident green-haired youth. And in the center, the master Manhwa Song in a wheelchair with a black cat wearing a heavy pearl necklace on his lap. The lower-ranking students whispered, surprised at the gathering. The master rolled forward and asked if Xu Jing had come for dojo storming. The cat on his lap looked up and fixed its eyes on Xu Jing. The master noted it had been a long time since someone dared to try dojo storming his place. He then asked Xu Jing if he thought he was qualified. Xu Jing glanced at his system and worried quietly. His combat-related levels were low compared to a dojo master. The master announced he would ask questions first. Xu Jing answered his name and age. The questions then turned personal, where he lived, what his parents did, whether he had siblings. Xu Jing stood, sweating and confused, as the questioning felt oddly like a marriage interview. The master laughed and said he had to ask extra questions for a future son-in-law. Zhu Shanning stepped forward, cracking her knuckles and insisting they fight to decide. She promised she would go easy on him. Xu Jing shook off the confusion, refocused, and raised his fists. As Zhu Shanning entered the center, the other disciples whispered that Xu Jing might be in trouble. Ning Funa, the black cat, watched from the sidelines, puzzled and annoyed at the idea of a marriage interview. Zhu Shanning attacked without hesitation, her movements sharp and controlled. Xu Jing's aiming skill broke her movement down into precise frames. He did not retreat. Instead, he moved in her guard and grabbed her wrist. Using her momentum against her, he twisted and threw her off balance. She spun away and stumbled dazed. The direct disciple's expressions shifted from amusement to interest. Li commented that Xu Jing's dynamic vision and grappling positioning were accurate, noting the brief exchange with a critical eye. Next to him, the green-haired Chun Fuguan grinned, amused by the scene. He said it reminded him of his own younger days and laughed, calling Xu Jing a good seedling. Master Mang Boss Hang joined in with a warm laugh while stroking the black cat on his lap. The tension in the room faded. The cat, Ning Funa, looked proud but was actually relieved inside. Xu Jing stood straight, dusting his hands, and asked the old dojo master if his dojo storming was successful. Golden notifications appeared in his vision, marking the reward of the battle, including the experience gained and the rise in charm. Master Mang moved forward with a pleased expression and confirmed that Xu Jing was qualified to become a direct disciple. He then reminded him that it was time to change how he addressed everyone. Xu Jing responded respectfully, greeting the master and his senior brothers and sisters. Chun Fuwang laughed loudly and called him the seventh junior brother. From the floor, Zhu Shanning, still holding her sore arm, introduced herself as the sixth senior sister and insisted he shouldn't get proud over one victory. Xu Jing thanked her warmly, noting in his thoughts that she had been the youngest before his arrival. A female disciple with long brown hair approached politely, offering to guide him through the entry procedures. Xu Jing quietly questioned the fancy title she used for him, and Master Mang clarified that as a direct disciple, he should not be looked down upon. She added that as an inner ring resident, the title was appropriate. Xu Jing asked if it could be changed, saying young master felt awkward, but eventually accepted whatever they preferred. Later, in the dojo lounge, Xu Jing relaxed on a sofa with the black cat resting on his lap. He mentioned that dojo storming wasn't as hard as he was told, saying the fight ended in one move. The voice of his guidance corrected him, explaining that Zhu Shanning was actually far stronger and that martial arts required more than just numbers. Decisions, intelligence, state of mind, and luck all mattered. Xu Jing understood and acknowledged that his victory had been influenced by luck and that he still had much to learn. The topic shifted, and he explained where he went the previous night, mentioning a visit to Grandpa Li and casually revealing some family history. The disciple awkwardly accepted the explanation and handed him an identity card for future access to the dojo. He received more charm experience, accepted the card, and prepared to return the next day. The following morning, the dojo was unusually lively. Disciples whispered as Xu Jing trained intensely in the center of the hall. He had been grinding all night, drenched in sweat and pushing himself through exhaustion while golden notifications continued to appear, marking improvements in fitness, inner force, and other skills. He sensed himself close to breaking through and refused to stop. With one final surge, a golden light flowed around him, signaling his breakthrough to inner force level 3. Drained, he collapsed onto the floor. The sound of a wheelchair approached. Master Mang looked at him with approval, saying Xu Jing was the strongest disciple he had ever accepted and would soon be able to cultivate the hidden dragon technique. Even exhausted, Xu Jing was eager and immediately asked about the method. Master Mang told him to hold out his hand. As they touched, the old man's expression shifted. He examined Xu Jing's internal state, seeing golden energy and signs of immense potential. He asked what sports Xu Jing usually did. Xu Jing tried to downplay it, but the master shook his head, saying there was no problem, only that Xu Jing's body was unnaturally well-balanced, almost as if crafted perfectly. He described him as a martial arts prodigy. Xu Jing knew the system was the reason, but stayed quiet. He then asked again if he could learn the technique immediately. The master stopped him, saying he had trained through the entire night and his body was covered in injuries, so there was no need to rush. In Master Mang's vision, he noticed the hidden damage beneath Xu Jing's skin, with red stress points spread across his muscles and meridians. He explained that cultivating the method now would be dangerous. Xu Jing's excitement faded and he asked what he should do. Master Mang told him to go to the lounge and said he would send the sleeping dragon ointment shortly. A few minutes later, Xu Jing was waiting in the lounge. He stood up when he heard a knock at the door. Instead of servant, Zhu Shanning stepped inside. She looked different from her usual appearance, wearing a loose white t-shirt and holding a small bottle. Her cheeks were slightly red as she told him she was there to treat his injuries. Xu Jing felt uneasy. He remembered how easily he had defeated her the day before, and he worried she might still be upset. She told him to take off his shirt, and he hesitated before doing so. She stared at his trained physique, her face turning redder, then pointed to the massage bed for him to lie down. He lay face down. Zhu Shanning told him not to move and began preparing the ointment. Her mood seemed cheerful, but Xu Jing felt nervous. She applied the cream to his back with firm pressure, making him wince slightly. She leaned more of her weight onto him, asking why he wasn't reacting. He told her it was fine as long as she was comfortable. Hearing this, she paused. She admitted that she had acted out of her own frustration from losing and had tried to tease him. She asked timidly if he was angry. He reassured her that he wasn't and told her to continue. She finished treating his upper body and jokingly told him to take off his pants. Xu Jing panicked and quickly refused, causing her to laugh. She told him she was joking and left the room smiling. Xu Jing let out a long breath. feeling like he had just avoided trouble. After resting, he left the dojo and walked down the street. He stretched and felt more relaxed, but still thought about how tense the treatment had been. As he walked, he received a notification that he had leveled up in fighting and inner force. He checked the time and decided to go to the library for his appointment. He remembered the silver-haired woman from the White Raven Squad and thought about their name, noting that it sounded dramatic even though they were simply a special police group. He wondered why they wanted to meet him at a library. He arrived at the building, entered the elevator, and went up to the 7th floor of the Qingqing Library. The doors opened to a massive room filled with books, but the space was dead silent. The library was empty, and Xu Jing walked down the long aisle of bookshelves, wary of a possible trick. From the shadows emerged a young woman with long blonde hair, tied in a ponytail, radiating brightness and cheer, a stark contrast to the silver-haired soldier he had encountered before. She gestured toward a table by the window, bathed in warm sunlight. Xu Jing noted the setting, understanding that the meeting was conducted in secrecy, away from the special police station. Her expression carried appraisal, and it was clear she had already evaluated him. He considered the reasoning behind her interest and remained guarded, questioning the basis for her attention. The woman picked up a red book from the table, signaling its importance. Xu Jing stiffened, realizing that his knowledge of god relics, information he had shared only with the cat, had drawn her notice. A chill ran through him as he assessed her background and intentions, noting that the recruitment process was far more complex than he had anticipated. She poured water into a cup and slid it across the table without explanation. Xu Jing drank it and found it ordinary, yet he remained suspicious. A second cup of liquid, clear and colorless, revealed sweetness when tasted, a revelation that unsettled him. It confirmed that her intentions were deliberate and layered with hidden knowledge. She then explained the true history of their world. 287 years ago, God had died. The scattered points of light from the deity's demise, later called God's blood, had fallen to the earth, embedding themselves in objects, living beings, and aspects of human fantasy. Objects containing this divine substance were known as god relics. She displayed a glass teapot glowing faintly with magical light, identifying it as a god relic, a sweet water kettle with a unique serial number. Xu Jing touched the kettle, and his system detected the divine substance, absorbing divinity points immediately. His heart raced as he realized he could gain divinity simply by touching god relics. Holding the kettle, he pretended to examine it while secretly continuing to absorb points. Observing the kettle, Xu Jing noted the water inside defied gravity and logic, effectively making it a perpetual motion device capable of overturning fundamental laws of the universe. He began connecting this to the inner ring of the city, where abundant electricity and resources existed, unlike the suffering outer ring. He hypothesized that god relics might explain the disparity. He restrained himself from overthinking, understanding that the very existence of a god relic symbolized unreasonableness and was beyond human replication. After reluctantly stopping his absorption of divinity, Xu Jing considered the motives behind the woman's revelation. She provided proof of her authority, including her company's official designation as a god relic containment and research entity, and acknowledged his recent feat in defeating a monstrous opponent with the body of a normal person. Xu Jing recognized that his courage and spiritual strength had impressed her. Determined, Xu Jing resolved to join the organization immediately, seeing it as an opportunity to access god relics and gain experience points. His determination was absolute, and he envisioned the possibilities of working in a god relic containment environment with unrestrained ambition. Excitement rose on the protagonist's face as his thoughts raced. A god relic containment company meant frequent contact with god relics. At present, god relics were the only known source of divinity. Even the passive skill twin life was already this powerful, and if the active skill was even more unreasonable, then no one in this world would be able to defeat him. In his mind, the future was clear, and wealth felt inevitable. While he was lost in his thoughts, Wu Yuqing observed him quietly and formed her own impression. To her, he looked like someone who had not yet seen much of the world. She took out a contract from behind her and handed it to him. The protagonist accepted it and began reading carefully. As he scanned the contents, he realized it was mostly identical to a standard labor contract, with the addition of a confidentiality agreement. His attention soon shifted to the second section. It detailed the dangers involved in God Relic work, clearly stating that unforeseen risks were possible. In the event of disability or death during containment operations, the company would provide a compensation of $5 million to the family, covering medical costs, funeral expenses, and basic living support. It also specified that no further claims could be made and that incidents caused by personal negligence would not be covered. After reading this section, doubts surfaced in his thoughts. He began to wonder whether this job was far more dangerous than he had expected. Wu Yuking then explained the grading system of God Relics, which were divided into 4 levels based on danger. As a newcomer, he would only be assigned the lowest grade tasks. As long as procedures were followed, the risks would remain minimal. Only after showing sufficient growth would he be exposed to truly dangerous work. Confidence surfaced in his thoughts as he considered the higher grade relics. Wu Yuking clarified that relics of the highest grade were beyond the scope of individuals or single organizations and would inevitably involve official government forces. Still, a lingering question troubled him. He could not understand why he had been chosen. Having contact with a God Relic alone did not seem enough to qualify him. In his thoughts, he reasoned that she knew nothing about his panel or his martial arts training. Being invited solely based on Void Blade's recommendation felt suspicious. Wu Yuking then revealed the true reason. According to her, God Relics possessed a form of will. Rather than humans finding them, relics were drawn towards certain people. Among humanity existed rare individuals capable of attracting God Relics naturally. She herself was one such person, and the protagonist shared the same constitution. To her, the offered salary alone was proof of sincerity. As he looked at the salary section of the contract, his thoughts shifted again. The pay was substantial, with a high monthly salary, a share of containment rewards, and additional stacked benefits. Realization dawned on him that this was why the company had acted so urgently. When he signed the contract, his thoughts were already settled. Salary was secondary. What truly mattered to him was access to God Relics. He felt confident about the future and accepted the cooperation without hesitation. After concluding the agreement, he prepared to leave. As he exited the library, his thoughts returned to his priorities. Between training at the Hidden Dragon Dojo and collecting God Relics, he knew these pursuits alone would consume his time. For the foreseeable future, school would likely have to wait. He sent a message to his friend, asking for help and requesting leave from the teacher on his behalf. His friend quickly agreed, and he replied with a brief message of thanks. While chatting, his thoughts drifted. A monthly salary of $200,000 was an amount he could not have earned even 10 years after graduating. Right now, improving his strength was the most urgent matter. Only by becoming stronger would there be any hope of going back. The scene shifted to the outer ring, where he walked while projecting his digital screen into the air. His attention focused on his active skill, wanting to understand its function first. The screen displayed information related to twin life, including the divinity required for upgrading, its passive effect of possessing 2 lives with a selectable resurrection time, and a cooldown period. The active ability was now unlockable, while another ability remained locked behind higher requirements. He proceeded to activate the active ability. New information appeared, explaining that for each level, one physical-related ability could be designated, producing a doubling effect when used. The available options included memory, physical defense, physical strength, reaction speed, movement speed, calculation ability, and concentration. As he reviewed the options, he analyzed them carefully. Choosing physical strength would double his power, but his main combat method relied on precision rather than brute force. Defense felt unnecessary due to his existing durability. In martial arts, speed often determined victory, so movement speed became the most logical choice. Before committing fully, he decided to create a control comparison. He fixed his gaze on a distant street lamp, roughly 100 meters away, and ran at full strength to measure his baseline performance. The timer showed just over 10 seconds, which he found acceptable. He then activated Twin Life and repeated the run. This time, his movement was drastically faster, finishing in roughly half the time. The result left him exhausted but satisfied, confirming that the speed increase was exactly double. As he recovered, his thoughts deepened. Improving sprint times was relatively simple at first, but beyond a certain point, even a minor improvement required immense effort, talent, and resources. In real combat, where even the smallest mistake could be fatal, this kind of acceleration defied logic and intuition. It was decisive and unavoidable. With a sense of achievement, he clenched his fists, recognizing twin life as a skill that ignored physical laws and limits entirely. He attempted to use the skill again while his body was still warm, only to find it unavailable due to a cooldown. Frustration followed, but he quickly realized that only around 20 seconds had passed since activation. This meant the skill would need to be used sparingly, with no clear indication of when it would fully recover. Exhaustion finally set in, and he decided to head home. As he walked toward his apartment, soreness spread through his body from an entire day of exertion. His plan was simple: bathe, sleep, and return to training the next day. He ended up falling asleep in the building hallway. When he woke, he checked his phone and saw that over 6 hours had passed, leaving him confused about how he had ended up there. He immediately checked the recovery status of twin life. The cooldown was nearly complete. From his calculations, each second of usage required 1,000 seconds of recovery, meaning full usage demanded roughly 6 hours to recharge. A message appeared reminding him of training. Panic set in, and he ran at full speed toward the dojo. Upon arriving, he pushed open the gate and was quickly noticed. He was led forward without delay, pulled directly into a sparring session meant to demonstrate proper gene force usage. The surrounding trainees whispered among themselves, assuming the outcome was obvious and hoping he would not get hurt. Hearing this, he recognized that the situation mirrored the previous encounter. Despite being framed as a demonstration, he knew she intended to reclaim her pride from last time and would not hold back. Instead of concern, he felt calm. This was the perfect chance to test his new ability. The sparring match between the protagonist and Zhu Xianying began. He did not rely on raw power. Instead, his movements were swift and precise. In a brief exchange, he caught her arm and redirected her momentum, forcing her down. Her body struck the ground, and the floor beneath her cracked apart, breaking into fragments from the force of the impact. As she lay on the ground, struggling to regain her senses, confusion filled her thoughts. She had used her full strength, yet the result was still defeat. She could not understand why. The protagonist looked at her and responded lightly, treating the outcome as if it were simply a friendly exchange. Soon after, multiple screens appeared in succession, recording the experience gained from the fight across various areas, including combat, fitness, health preservation, aiming, and sports. Among them, one of his skills advanced to the next level. While reviewing the information, he began to reflect. The result no longer counted as defeating a stronger opponent while being weaker. This led him to suspect that once twin life speed was activated, the panel no longer judged him as inferior to Zhu Xianying. Despite her superior combat experience and caution, she had still failed to react in time. This confirmed to him just how powerful twin life truly was. Clenching his fist, he felt satisfied. His future training focus became clear. He needed to learn how to fully utilize the advantage created by overwhelming speed. From a distance, Chen noticed him and called out, inviting him to train together. The protagonist agreed and followed along. After some time passed, Chen observed him closely and realized something was wrong. What he had previously assumed to be exaggeration turned out to be real. The protagonist was already close to cultivating Dragon Chi, something that should not have been possible in such a short time. Chen explained the concept behind it. In the martial arts world, there existed a legendary physical state known as the treasure body. It referred to refining the human body into something comparable to a treasure. This state was said to involve 5 types of perfection: muscles like dragons and elephants, tendons like iron tree roots, flawless glazed glass skin, molten gold blood, and indestructible jade bones. Each stage represented an extreme transformation of the body. However, this realm was generally considered a myth, as no one had ever truly achieved it. The protagonist listened calmly. In his thoughts, he did not see it as impossible. Just because others could not achieve it did not mean it was beyond his reach. Chun joked internally that perhaps even becoming a martial arts myth was not entirely impossible. He then showed something on his screen and guided the protagonist forward, preparing to introduce him to someone important. He indicated that this person was the most powerful eldest senior brother of the Hidden Dragon Dojo, manhwa. Before the introduction could properly continue, someone suddenly entered the dojo by crashing through a window. Glass shattered as the figure landed inside. The protagonist and Chun both watched the scene with shock and unease. Chun immediately recognized the person and reacted with visible tension. He led the protagonist closer and indicated that the man who had just entered was the dojo's most formidable senior disciple, manhwa. As the protagonist observed him, his thoughts became cautious. The man clearly had unusual traits. He appeared quiet, physically overwhelming, disliked trouble, possessed extreme strength, was overly protective, and behaved in an unorthodox manner. Chun further indicated that this senior brother had a habit of avoiding normal entrances and preferred entering through windows instead. The protagonist glanced toward the broken window and began calculating internally. Jumping from the highest floor would require terrifying physical strength, far beyond ordinary standards. After a brief exchange between Chun and manhwa, Chun seemed to understand the situation. He then informed the protagonist that he needed to leave to handle some matters. Before leaving, Chun emphasized a key principle of the hibernating dragon technique. Its core lay in force delivery and shaping. The protagonist repeated the concept in his mind, slowly grasping its meaning. He realized that he had been overly focused on increasing the quantity of chi while neglecting how it was shaped and controlled. A new idea formed as he considered combining this concept with his aiming ability. 3 hours later, the protagonist sat in meditation, breathing steadily and focusing his mind. He gathered his power into his index finger and released it toward the wall. The impact created a large hole, far exceeding anything he had achieved before. As he examined the result, he acknowledged that this was far more effective than simple projectile techniques. At that moment, the dojo master arrived alongside Zhu Shanying, applauding his progress. The master appeared pleased, recognizing that in addition to his exceptional physical talent, the protagonist also possessed remarkable aptitude in sports-related cultivation. The master then handed him a pearl-like object. Without hesitation, the protagonist consumed it. Immediately afterward, the master's expression turned serious, demanding his full attention. The protagonist's consciousness began to fade. Confusion filled his thoughts as his surroundings blurred. He questioned where he was and what had just been done to him. As he lost consciousness, he perceived a massive dragon formed entirely of energy. The dragon surged forward and entered his body. A glowing, dragon scale-like pattern appeared on his arm. As he faintly registered the change, confusion lingered in his thoughts as he stared at his transformed hand. The protagonist held his head tightly with both hands as discomfort surged through his body. Pain throbbed behind his temples while the chi inside him felt chaotic, rushing wildly in every direction. He suspected that this instability was the effect of the pill he had just consumed. As his consciousness stabilized, he focused inward. He slowed his breathing, deliberately calming the restless chi. Using the hibernating dragon technique, he entered a controlled state of breath retention. The sensation that followed felt profound and unfamiliar. All distracting thoughts faded away, leaving only clarity. In that moment, he realized that complete focus on cultivation alone was enough. His consciousness was soon pulled back into the dreamlike dimension. Once again, he found himself seated before the gigantic dragon formed from particles resembling god relics. As he faced it, his eyes transformed, taking on the same presence as the dragon's. Several translucent screens appeared before him, indicating that the conditions had been met and a new skill had been activated. The visualization ability appeared, newly unlocked, and still at its initial level. When he fully regained awareness, confusion surfaced. He did not understand how he had returned so suddenly. Observing him, the dojo master appeared calm and satisfied. The master had intervened just in time, preventing the protagonist's chi from being completely exhausted. Cultivating dragon chi on the first attempt was no small feat, and the master clearly regarded this achievement as extraordinary. The protagonist wondered what dragon chi truly was. The dojo master explained that dragon chi was fundamentally tied to emotion. Strong emotions enhanced strength and vitality, especially in moments of anger or survival. Within the hidden dragon style, Stimulating emotions was referred to as chi of motion, while controlling emotions was known as chi of stillness. Mastery came from combining both states, allowing success in any pursuit. Motivated by this explanation, the protagonist considered how such power could be trained. The dojo master believed he had already grasped the core of it and encouraged him to reflect rather than ask further. The protagonist realized that the essence might lie in the distraction-free state he had entered earlier. As memories surfaced, he noticed something strange. Knowledge from his past life felt intact and vivid. Problems he once struggled with now seemed simple and effortless. Concepts he had not studied in years appeared clearly in his mind. This sudden clarity led him to realize that his intelligence had improved. The dojo master acknowledged this, but implied that it was only a minor aspect of the transformation. The protagonist also noticed that ordinary matters no longer stirred his emotions easily. His imagination had strengthened significantly. He could now visualize a giant dragon with extreme precision, down to individual strands of its mane and every golden scale. He suspected that this ability was closely related to visualization itself. The dojo master made it clear that understanding alone was insufficient and that only practice would reveal the truth. He then instructed Qingjiao to spar with the protagonist. Qingjiao was known for having the best motion control among all disciples, surpassing even her father, Boss Hang. As Qingjiao approached, the protagonist's thoughts wandered briefly, distracted by her appearance. He wondered how her strength compared to that of the sixth senior sister. Pushing those thoughts aside, he charged forward, mentally asking forgiveness from the fourth senior sister. Qingjiao remained calm. With a single raised hand and a simple gesture, she halted his attack and sent him flying effortlessly. Observing this, the dojo master laughed, noting that the protagonist's intentions had been far too obvious. As the protagonist sat on the ground preparing for another attempt, he questioned whether her strength surpassed even his golden finger. When Qingjiao formed another hand seal, he rose again, determination burning in his chest. He surged forward at full speed, resolved to win this time no matter the cost. The protagonist tried using various strengthening skills and techniques against her while continuing to attack. In his thoughts, he believed that in martial arts, methods did not matter. Only the one who remained standing was considered the winner, while the one on the ground was the loser. She countered with a clean kick that struck him directly, sending him flying backward and crashing to the ground at a distance. After a moment, he forced himself back up, gathering what strength he had left, and pushed himself to continue the sparring. From outside the dojo, the sounds of continuous combat could be heard as both of them fought without holding back. During one exchange, the protagonist landed a solid punch to Qingjiao's chest. The force behind it sent her flying through the air, carried by the energy contained within that strike. The protagonist felt a strange sensation travel through his hand at the moment of impact. It was unfamiliar and different from anything he had experienced before. The dojo master stepped in and ended the match, deciding that it was enough for the day. Qingjiao was sent away to rest, as continuing any further would no longer be effective. As she left, the protagonist wondered why the fourth senior sister never spoke. The dojo master explained that something had happened when Qingjiao was very young, and that her story could not be explained quickly. It was something that would need to be discussed another time. The protagonist accepted this explanation without pressing further. The dojo master then observed him closely and asked about the results of the day's training. Sweat streamed down the protagonist's face as he reflected on how he felt. His body was completely exhausted, more tired than he had ever been in his life. At the same time, he felt an unfamiliar sense of happiness and fulfillment. On his way home, the protagonist thought about the sparring session. The fourth senior sister was extremely fierce. After sparring with her for more than 4 hours, his experience had increased significantly. He realized that continuing to train alongside her would be extremely beneficial. When he reached his apartment, he opened the door and called out to his cat, bringing fried chicken with him. When there was no response, unease settled in. He searched around the apartment, growing increasingly worried as time passed. It was already late, and the cat was nowhere to be seen. As he approached the bathroom, he noticed that the light inside was turned on. Seeing this, a thought crossed his mind. Someone appeared to be inside the bathroom. Standing near the bathroom door, the protagonist noticed a single pair of shoes placed neatly beside it. He reasoned that Warner had not brought any guests home. With only one pair present, it meant she was likely inside. A sense of unease followed. His thoughts turned cautious as he recalled that Warner had mentioned having enemies before. The possibility that something had gone wrong crossed his mind. He hurried forward and pushed the bathroom door open. Inside, he saw Warner bathing calmly. The tension in his mind immediately eased, and he realized there had been no danger at all. He sat down beside the bathtub and gently held her paw, reminding himself that the fried chicken he brought back would get cold if they wasted time. At the mention of food, Warner's attention shifted, her thoughts clearly drawn toward hunger. The protagonist joined her by the bathtub and began helping her bathe, carefully scrubbing her head with soap. As this continued, Warner drifted into a light daydream, relaxed by the familiar care. At that moment, Warner turned toward him and placed a paw against his chest. The relic attached to her tail suddenly began to glow. The light grew intense, forcing the protagonist to close his eyes as tears formed from the brightness. When the light faded, something had clearly changed. Warner was no longer in her original form. She had transformed into a human figure that still retained certain feline traits. The protagonist froze in shock, struggling to process what he was seeing. Warner herself noticed the change at the same time. Seeing her own hands and unfamiliar body caused immediate confusion and embarrassment. She instinctively tried to cover herself and blocked the protagonist's view with her tail. The protagonist remained still and calm, reassuring himself that he had not seen anything inappropriate. His focus was on de-escalating the situation rather than reacting. As Warner became aware of her position, her embarrassment deepened. She shut her eyes tightly, overwhelmed by the sudden transformation and proximity. The protagonist noticed her reaction and questioned internally what was wrong. Warner, flustered and upset, denied that anything was happening, though her thoughts betrayed her confusion and frustration. She realized that the transformation had likely been triggered unintentionally. The emotions she had felt earlier, combined with the situation and the relic's response, had caused this outcome. The condition itself felt messy and unreasonable to her, especially with the remaining animal traits still present. She warned herself not to let misunderstandings form. This situation was clearly an accident, nothing more. As she attempted to move away, another unexpected sensation made her react sharply, further escalating her embarrassment and anger. The protagonist, maintaining restraint despite his own discomfort, understood that the situation was beyond simple control. He realized that if she did not move away soon, things could worsen unintentionally. Warner finally decided to leave the bathtub. She instructed herself to move carefully and insisted that the protagonist keep his eyes closed. As she stepped out, her foot slipped on the soap. Losing balance, she fell directly onto the protagonist's lap. The sudden impact left both of them frozen. The protagonist stiffened, sweat forming as he struggled to remain composed. Warner, completely flustered, realized what had happened and panicked internally, insisting that it had not been intentional. The protagonist felt a wave of embarrassment, his face heating up as he struggled to remain still. The situation was becoming increasingly difficult to manage, especially with Warner still so close. Warner reacted with visible discomfort. Her movements became restless, and her expression showed clear unease. The more she shifted, the harder it became for him to keep control. Tears welled up in her eyes as she felt overwhelmed, unable to fully explain herself. It was obvious that none of this had been intentional. The protagonist focused on calming her down. He understood her panic and reminded himself to endure just a little longer. At the same time, he realized that if this continued, things could spiral beyond control. His expression turned serious. He knew that she needed to leave immediately, or the situation would become far more complicated. Warner noticed the shift in his demeanor. After a brief pause, she suddenly bolted out of the bathroom at full speed, instinctively covering herself as she fled. Left alone, the protagonist finally exhaled and resumed bathing by himself, trying to clear his thoughts. An hour later, he stepped out of the bathroom, drying his hair with a towel. He noticed that Warner had already returned to her original form. The transformation had reversed without warning, leaving only confusion behind. Warner appeared frustrated and irritated. After calming down earlier, she had inexplicably turned back into a cat and was now unable to transform again. The inconsistency of the relic's behavior clearly bothered her. When the protagonist tried to approach, she dodged away and put distance between them. Observing this, he understood her reaction. Given what had happened earlier, it was natural that she did not want any physical contact. He carefully explained that he had recently encountered someone knowledgeable about god relics. His plan was to seek help the next day and learn more about Warner's condition, hoping it might allow her to transform again safely. Warner reacted dismissively on the surface, but inside, excitement quietly stirred. The thought of transforming again filled her imagination with wild, self-indulgent fantasies of turning the tables on him. She began laughing to herself, lost in those thoughts, while the protagonist watched her with confusion, unable to understand her sudden mood shift. Later that night, the protagonist went to bed and fell into a deep sleep. By morning, he woke feeling refreshed and noticed Warner sleeping nearby, her breathing calm and steady. A notification sound from his phone pulled him fully awake. He checked the message and saw that it was from Yu Qing, the person who had previously recruited him. The message was short and urgent. Reading it, excitement stirred within him. At last, new work had arrived. The scene shifted to the next morning inside the Qingchang library. After entering the library, the protagonist immediately sensed something unusual. The entire space was silent and empty, with no signs of activity anywhere. As he looked around, confusion arose in his mind. He had been told to come quickly, yet the person who summoned him was nowhere to be seen. His gaze slowly swept across the room until it settled on a single girl seated at a table, quietly reading while wearing a pair of glasses. At first glance, she seemed like an ordinary student, but something about her presence felt familiar. A moment later, realization struck him. The girl with the glasses was Wu Yuqing. She revealed herself soon after, confirming his suspicion. As she removed her glasses, her presence suddenly became much more noticeable. A faint trace of embarrassment crossed her face before she quickly composed herself. She explained the glasses she had been wearing. They were a god relic capable of suppressing a person's presence, making them difficult to notice. While worn, they dulled one's existence, but once removed, all that suppressed presence would surge outward at once. The longer they were worn, the stronger the effect would be afterward. The protagonist reacted with mild confusion, finding the explanation unexpected but intriguing. As he stood there, he sensed the presence of divine energy reacting within him. Wu Yuqing continued explaining calmly, making it clear that the relic's effects were far more complex than they initially appeared. She then handed the glasses to him. As he examined them, curiosity filled his thoughts. Certain strange reactions he had experienced earlier now made more sense to him. He soon shifted his focus back to the reason he had been called. That was when Wu Yuqing brought out several documents and laid them before him. She explained that the mission was unusual. It was a containment task that normally would not be assigned to someone at his level. The target involved another god relic, one that amplified the wearer's primal desires. The current bearer was a woman named Lu Huiying, whose impulses became uncontrollable when encountering attractive men. The protagonist put on the glasses as he listened. It became clear that this relic had been prepared specifically for him. Given his current foundation, suppressing his presence first and then releasing it at the right moment would allow him to easily trigger the target's obsession and safely remove the relic. As the plan settled in his mind, the protagonist felt a slight flush of embarrassment. The method was obvious, but he could not deny that it suited him rather well. At the same time, he sensed another wave of divine energy being absorbed. The realization dawned on him that this mission would allow him to deal with two god relics at once while remaining relatively safe. He glanced at the glasses again, feeling that they fit him perfectly. An ambitious thought crossed his mind as he imagined the results of wearing them for an extended period before removing them. With renewed confidence, he adjusted his hair, his posture straightening slightly as his thoughts soared toward the future. Nearby, Wu Yuqing watched him quietly, a trace of confusion appearing in her expression as she tried to understand what was going through his mind. The protagonist broke the silence and casually brought up the topic of the glasses. From her response, he understood that the glasses were not her personal item, but something borrowed from another containment company. That information surprised him. Until now, he had assumed their organization was the only one of its kind in the country, especially given how secretive and high-level it appeared. She clarified the misunderstanding. God Relic containment companies were indeed special, but in essence, their work was no different from cleaning dangerous threats that appeared unpredictably. Relics existed everywhere, and no single organization could possibly manage them all. Because of that, multiple companies operated under the same system. The explanation continued in a calm and realistic manner. Containment work was extremely dangerous, and not everyone was qualified to handle it. These jobs were outsourced by the state, and while some companies followed strict rules, others were driven purely by profit. If he ever encountered personnel from other companies, caution would be necessary. The protagonist acknowledged this internally, letting out a quiet sigh as the weight of the responsibility settled in. After a brief pause, he removed the glasses, intending to personally test their effect. As he stood there, the change was immediate. His suppressed presence surged outward naturally, without effort. Wu Youqing's reaction made the result obvious. Her heartbeat quickened, and a faint blush appeared on her face as she instinctively looked away. The protagonist quickly understood that the glasses worked exactly as described. Satisfied with the confirmation, the scene shifted. The setting moved to city traffic later that day. Inside a bus, the protagonist sat quietly while reviewing the documents Wu Youqing had given him. As the vehicle moved through the streets, he focused on the information in front of him. Lu Huiying's profile was detailed and direct. She was active almost exclusively in the Southern District, frequenting bars, discos, host clubs, and KTVs. The locations alone painted a clear picture of her lifestyle and influence. As he read further, the situation became clearer. Using the physical enhancement provided by the villainess's crown of glory, she had established her own territory and formed a small gang known as the Rose Gang. With her strength continuously increasing, she preyed on local men, draining them both physically and mentally. The crown itself continuously amplified her desires. The stronger those desires became, the greater the boost to her physical abilities. Left unchecked, the effect would only continue to stack endlessly. The solution, however, was straightforward. Removing the crown would return her to a normal state. The challenge lay in creating the right opportunity to do so. As the bus slowed and reached its destination in the Southern District, the protagonist folded the documents and stood up. Stepping off the bus, he felt another subtle surge of divine energy within him, signaling that his involvement with God Relics was only deepening as he moved forward. The scene shifted to the Southern District. On a street corner, Lu Huiying was violently assaulting a man with a bat. A heavy strike landed squarely on his abdomen, forcing blood to spill from his mouth as he collapsed in pain. She casually swung the bat in her hand, clearly enjoying the complete lack of restraint that her current state allowed. Her expression was twisted with satisfaction. To her, acting freely without consequences felt intoxicating. Anyone who tried to interfere or restrain her would only become another target of her violence. From a distance, the protagonist observed everything in silence. His attention was fixed on the crown resting on her head, and disgust rose in his thoughts. Her behavior felt excessive and absurd, but there was no doubt that she was the target he had been searching for. As Lu Huiying prepared to leave, an elderly man approached her cautiously. His posture was submissive, and fear was evident in his movements. She stopped and questioned him instead, clearly not done with her amusement for the day. The old man bowed deeply, offering compliance without resistance. His desperation was obvious. Lu Huiying suddenly closed the distance between them, her expression darkening as her intent became unmistakable. The protagonist, still watching from afar, felt immediate revulsion. The thought of approaching her himself made his skin crawl, and the assignment felt far more unpleasant than expected. Before the situation could escalate further, a group of men arrived, advancing toward Lu Huiying with hostility. Their formation was aggressive, and their intent was clear. They had come seeking revenge. Recognizing the sudden shift, the protagonist decided to remain hidden and continue observing. This unexpected development could reveal valuable information. The leader of the group stepped forward, openly challenging Lu Huiying. It quickly became clear that he was Duan Kaiping, the leader of the Razor Gang. Lu Huiying turned toward him dismissively, showing no recognition or concern. One of her injured subordinates hurriedly explained his identity, confirming that the Razor Gang had suffered greatly at his hands before losing their territory. Lu Huiying approached Duan Kaiping slowly, examining him with obvious interest. Her attention lingered on his physique, and her behavior only further provoked him. Anger exploded from Duan Kaiping. He surged forward and launched a powerful punch, demanding the return of his territory. Lu Huiying evaded the attack effortlessly, moving with speed and confidence that far exceeded his expectations. Enraged, Duan Kaiping continued attacking relentlessly, shouting insults as his strikes repeatedly failed to land. From his vantage point, the protagonist pieced together the situation. The Southern District had originally belonged to the Razor Gang, but Lu Huiying had seized it using the power granted by the crown, igniting an ongoing feud between the two groups. As the conflict escalated, Duan Kaiping's men joined the fight, charging toward Lu Huiying and her followers. The street quickly descended into chaos as both sides clashed violently. In the confusion, one of Duan Kaiping's men struck the old man's young son in the head with a brick. The child screamed in pain and collapsed to the ground. The sight instantly enraged Lu Huiying. Her attention snapped toward the injured child, and fury surged through her. The old man cried out in despair, rushing toward his son. Gripping her bat tightly, Lu Huiying turned back to her enemies, her rage now fully ignited. Any trace of amusement vanished as her intent shifted toward brutal retaliation. Duan showed a confident expression as he finally became serious. He stepped forward and launched a powerful punch, landing it directly on Lu Huiying's face. The force sent her flying into the air, crashing into nearby debris, which shattered on impact. She recovered quickly, rising with a twisted smile, clearly intrigued by the exchange. She decided to engage him properly instead of treating the fight as entertainment. From a distance, the protagonist continued to observe in silence. Both fighters advanced toward each other again, their movements sharp and forceful. As they clashed repeatedly, the protagonist analyzed Duan Kaiping carefully. His palm strikes were precise and controlled, shaped like a blade, capable of cutting with tremendous force. As the fight continued, both sides exchanged heavy blows. However, despite Duan's superior technique, Lu Huiying suffered only superficial injuries. In pure martial skill, Duan clearly surpassed her, but her body absorbed the damage unnaturally well, making it difficult to injure her seriously. At that moment, the protagonist felt the absorption process complete. Without hesitation, he chose to enhance his physical strength this time, pairing it with his previous speed enhancement. Testing the effect, he picked up a small stone and tossed it lightly before hurling it forward with full force. The stone struck Duan's lower leg. Despite its size, the impact was devastating, shattering the bone instantly. Duan collapsed in pain, screaming uncontrollably. The protagonist confirmed internally that the enhancement was extremely effective. Lu Huiying froze, immediately sensing something was wrong. She spun around, trying to locate the source of the attack. Duan accused someone of a sneak attack while struggling to stand. His companions rushed to support him, retreating quickly while issuing threats before leaving the scene. Lu Huiying watched them go, blood spilling from her mouth, clearly injured but still standing. The strike had caused noticeable damage. At that moment, the protagonist stepped forward and entered the scene. Lu Huiying focused on him, questioning whether he was responsible. The protagonist admitted it calmly, standing with confidence. She suspected he had used some kind of weapon. He neither confirmed nor denied it directly, only implying that it was not meant for her. While observing her stance and movements, the protagonist noted that her fighting style lacked discipline. It was clear she had never undergone formal training. He clenched his fist and prepared himself, deciding to confront her directly rather than relying on external control methods unless absolutely necessary. Lu Huiying reacted with vulgar confidence, attempting to provoke him. The protagonist remained silent, inhaling deeply and maintaining composure. His calm response unsettled her. For the first time, doubt surfaced in her thoughts as she began to reassess him. She demanded to know who he was. The protagonist relaxed his stance slightly and introduced himself simply, giving her a name to remember.